Welcome to Journey Unto You. My name is Lorraine, and I am your host. I'm privileged to be here with you. On this platform, we will explore all things autism and other subjects and needs within the community. I will share my own personal journey and how it all got started. The weirds, the awkwards, and the uglies, and yes, my very favorite, the victories. I hope to encourage you and even get some questions answered. This platform is for anyone who has had autism on their path. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and just listen in. There is hope. Hello, and thank you again for joining me. On today's episode, what I'd like to share is just a little lens on what it's like to be an RBT, otherwise known as a registered behavior technician. Now, a registered behavior technician is the person who works directly under a BCBA or a BCABA. Below an RBT is a BT, which is a behavior technician, and they have not yet taken their statewide testing, which is why it's called a BT and not a registered BT. I became a registered behavior technician the spring, I believe, of 2023. Now, ABA has been around a while, but when my son was getting therapy and getting one-on-one skills implemented, they were not called RBTs at that time. They were usually just paras or assistants of some kind. There wasn't the name RBT at that time. So I wanted to just sort of open the door, because not only am I a parent, and so I've had that lens of that side, I've also had the provider side and what that looks like. Being a registered behavior technician has a reputation. It's well known in the business that it is a very burnt out job. There's a high turnover. In my personal opinion, most RBTs are very underpaid. I am a provider that is on the higher end, which in this neck of the woods isn't as common. I would like to see that change within this industry. RBTs work very hard. I'd also like to see RBTs gain more training. It is a certification, but I'm a firm believer in that there should be some ongoing training that is significant, rather than just taking some HR video trainings. I think sometimes that has a little bit to do with the quality of RBTs that do come in the field. I have seen wonderful RBTs that have become BCBAs, and I've seen RBTs that don't want to be BCBAs, but they do a fantastic job. And I've seen RBTs not be so great and become BCBAs. I've seen a little bit of all of it. I've worked with some wonderful BCBAs. Some of them they're so proactive and they really do care about their clients and they're wonderful with the families. I think that when BCBAs are proactive for the family and for the RBTs that work under them, they do a great job. Being a passive BCBA is when your disposition is a little bit more passive and you kind of don't get in there and really seek for answers. In my observation, I haven't met a lot of BCBAs like that, but I have met them. In my humble opinion, they're a little harder to work with because you find as an RBT that you sort of have to be your own advocate. And sometimes that is challenging in this business. Depending on what area of ABA you work in as a registered behavior technician, and what I mean by that is there is the community environment where you take clients out to gain life skills within the community. There's also RBTs who work within the school district. There are RBTs who work within daycare settings where the parents have requested that they implement therapy in the daycare setting rather than their home, which we call in-home services. And then we have the clients that come to clinic and their parents come, drop them off, and they will receive services for however long that it's been suggested. So there's different environments, and the most support is in clinic for an RBT, where you're going to get a lot of supervision hours, probably way more than you need. We are only required to have 5% supervision hours a month, which is very bare minimum, and that almost next to never happens. It's usually at least 20% or more, just by happenstance, because you're going to need the support of your BCBA. The school environment is probably where you're going to see the least BCBA involvement. That can be quite challenging when you are having a child that might need a lot more services, particularly if you have a high needs child. I have experienced that. And if you also have a teacher that isn't very receptive to ABA in the school districts, and that's all depending on what state you're from and how long. A lot of the public school systems are not very welcoming to RBTs. It's more the charter schools and the private schools that are open to having ABA therapy in their classroom. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think that sometimes there's not enough training from administration to the teachers to implement what is actually happening in their room and why the RBT is there and the RBT is not there to take over the classroom. I think with my own personal experience and what I have heard from other RBTs, that teachers oftentimes feel a little threatened on some level, when really we're there to help them so that they can continue teaching the other students. And then hopefully we are handing back a child that has some skills that are more conducive to the classroom environment. And it might take all year. A lot of teachers do not understand that because they haven't received the training. They are just now in this state where I'm at warming up to bringing RBTs into the school systems. It's still not happening in all the school districts, but there are a few that are opening up their doors to that. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is that the RBTs are the ones who do the direct care. We are the ones that implement the actual therapies that the BCBAs have organized and written all out for that particular individual, and then they put them in a program, and there might be some different types of software that's used. Central Reach is a very popular program that we RBTs use. Catalyst is another. There's one more, and I can't think of its name right off the top of my head, but there are other softwares. I personally love working with Central Reach. There's so many things you can do with it. So when we open up the program for the particular client that we are working with, all of their data is in there. Everything that we need is right in there, and it's a very nice feature for us as RBTs. It used to be that we had to collect data by hand, which is, depending on the client and what it is you're actually doing, can be pretty tedious and time consuming, and in my humble opinion, not as accurate. So I'm an advocate for Central Reach. And we take data on our tablets, and some RBTs take data on their phone. It just depends on your preference and what the clinic is okay with doing. RBTs work all kinds of schedules, from all day, 8 to 5. Some RBTs are students, and so they might work on weekends. Some RBTs work in the evenings and do after-school therapy. We have all kinds of schedules. I am an RBT that works Monday through Friday. Right now, my schedule is, I'm an early bird. I work from 7 to 2 in the afternoon. That will be changing, but you have RBTs that come in at 8 and work till 5. You have some that come at 9 and work till 3. Some only work weekends and do in-home therapies. So it really just depends on the need of the clients and the agency that you work for and your own personal schedule. One of the things that I would love to see change within the industry is RBTs being paid for no-shows and or cancellations, particularly when it's not the night before. Some clinics are wonderful. So if you work in a clinic, a lot of times, if you have a no-show or if you have a cancellation, you're able to go in the office and get some things done. Sometimes the director of the clinic may have some other things going on, and so you are able to kind of step in and aid in that. That's not with all clinics, but a lot of clinics do that. If you are an in-home therapist or technician, rather, this is again based on the agency. Some agencies, if someone calls out last minute, the family says, hey, we don't need therapy today, they might have someone nearby that you might be able to fill in for, maybe another RBT called out sick, that type of thing. What's hard about that is that when that happens, when there's a no-show, we don't get paid because we're insurance-based. And so as of right now, that has not changed. So I do think that that is something that I hope changes in the very near future, because that is a hardship for a lot of RBTs, and cancellations are very common within this line of work, particularly with the needs of these kiddos. One of the things that I have seen that's very common in all settings is parents tend to send their children sick. I have seen parents give their children medicine, not actually see them give them medicine, but they will send them. So they'll be sick the day before, have a fever and all of that, and send them the very next day. And clearly their child is still not feeling well. This is something, unfortunately, that is very common. RBTs across the board cannot stand that. It is so hard on us. Not only do we not want to deal with a cranky little one who's come in to do work, because they don't come in. We're not a daycare. We're not. And I think sometimes parents treat therapy, because it's covered by the insurance, they treat it like a daycare. And so they're just basically dropping their child off, right? And I understand the need for that break. I've been that parent, so I get it so much. But when your child is sick and you send them the very next day, we know what's up. We can tell that your child's still not feeling well. They need to be home. I've seen this so many times. Parents will send their children with runny noses and just stuff coming out of their nose, and their child is barely keeping their eyes open because they don't feel well. And we have a policy within clinic that when a child falls asleep, we can only let them sleep for 7 minutes because of insurance fraud. So they're there to implement therapies. We're not a daycare. They're not there to sleep. So that becomes kind of a tricky thing for us on the provider side. And I've seen parents not come get their children. Some parents do not have the ability right away to just drop everything they're doing at work. And we take all of those things into consideration. I've just seen parents really take advantage of the system and the therapies that are being implemented. And then what happens is we as RBTs get sick, and then we bring that home to our families. This has been a vicious cycle. I've also seen directors of clinics and agencies not enforce the very paperwork that they had parents sign about the policies with their children. When they're not feeling well, they need to be kept home for 24 hours until that fever is gone. I've seen it be implemented, but for the most part, unfortunately, that happens a lot because some clinics they're not supportive of their RBTs, and they don't want to lose the money. And I hate to say it like that, but that's just, at the end of the day, that's the reason. They just don't want to lose money. And I have heard RBTs complain about this a lot. We don't want to deal with your sick children. We just don't. On top of, and that's the other thing too, is children who have autism, they don't like to do the therapies. Sometimes they like to come and they don't mind, but for the most part, it is not their favorite thing to do. Even children who've been coming for a while and they're used to the routine, they know what's up. Most of them, not all, but most of them are like, yeah, this is a no thank you. And so on top of not feeling well, and, you know, if you are a parent and you're listening to this, it's not that I'm trying to, and maybe you even have your child in the ABA services. Maybe you've even been that parent that has sent your child sick. And this isn't to condemn you. This is just to give you another perspective of how it feels on the other side. And again, I've been on both sides. So I do understand that it's hard because you really do need that break. But it's better for everybody to keep your baby home if they're not feeling well, at least for a couple of days. And yes, we as RBTs lose money, but we would rather be well so that we can implement therapies with good physical energy and mental energy. The other thing that I wanted to implement, and this piece is my own personal opinion. It used to be that RBTs, it was a little more enforced, let me say it that way, that RBTs would wear scrubs. Some of us still do, and it is best because you do sit on the floor, you do get bodily fluids on you sometimes, and it is clinic. It is a therapy, and it sets a standard. I do know RBTs that still put on their scrubs, but I've also seen even in this almost 3 years that I've been doing this line of work, I have seen RBTs really get very laxed in what they're wearing to work, to the point of extremely unprofessional. I have seen RBTs wear slippers to work. Yes, I have. I have seen RBTs wear yoga / exercise pants with clearly no underwear underneath. Yes, I've seen that. And it's just so unprofessional. I've seen some nastiness. I really have. And it sets a tone of just very low grade therapy. Nobody wants to look at that. Usually it gets called out in some type of staff meeting eventually. But yes, I have seen RBTs push the envelope, getting a little too comfortable with their job and how lax that sometimes we can be, because you do want to be comfortable and you do want to be able to move about and get on the floor if you have to. And sometimes for some of us, and in my case, you might have a client that you have to put in holds. So you do want to We don't see this as much in clinic, but yes, some of us RBTs do have to put clients in holds when they get very physically aggressive. It does happen. We don't like to do it. It's not fun for everybody involved. So you do need to wear comfortable clothing. So that's something that I would like to see really change within the industry is the scrub dress code be very much enforced. That again, that is something that's my own personal opinion and that I think really makes a clinic look really good and professional and shows the quality of your RBTs. So a lot of us have very draining days. It is a very draining profession, especially if you work in a school environment where the teacher is not very welcoming or you have teacher's assistants that are not helpful. That can make for a very toxic environment. And or if you are in-home and you have parents that are helicopter parents or who want you to do things a certain way, but they don't understand that you are doing things a certain way and that you do know what you're doing. I have worked with parents like that, and I have worked with parents that cannot keep RBTs because they won't just let the RBTs work. And that's unfortunate. So if you're that parent, please keep in mind these things when you are getting ABA services, that we are just people, but most of us do know our jobs. And we have the BCBA right there, who has told us what that child needs. And obviously, if there are some concerns about the quality of care and the safety of your child, of course, report that to your agency or the BCBA. Things do happen. I have heard some kind of crazy things happen. So, with all things said, I'm talking about rule of thumb type situations. And even in clinic, we have very draining days. Some clinics do not give breaks. You have to request a break. You have to have that implemented in your schedule. The very first clinic that I ever worked for, it was not in this state that I live in now, but this particular clinical director had been in the business for over 30 years. She now had her own clinic, and her policy was for 1 hour, the clinic got shut down. Completely closed. We all took a lunch break. We all took a rest. And she had it designed to where we did the littles in the morning, and then we took our lunch break. And then in the afternoon, we did various ages, but not littles. We didn't do anybody under 4, but any child 5 and older. And then after school, some of the teenagers would come. We did have a teen social group, which was amazing. I loved doing that. And she stayed open till 6. But even though you had that 1 hour longer, and she didn't open up till 9, it was the perfect schedule for an RBT because she had seen so much RBT burnout. And she also, the other thing that she didn't do was, so a lot of people don't know that when a child comes to clinic, their therapy hours and the therapy that they get is based upon what the insurance will approve, based on the child's disability and what you're trying to implement. And so sometimes children they're approved for 40 hours, which is insane. If you look at it like this, so if you're a person that needs to go to a counselor, maybe because you're having a personal issue and you need to go to a therapist, can you imagine sitting in that therapist's office for 40 hours a week talking about your situation? You would be burnt out. You would say, I'm all done. I'm good. And so imagine being little and not being able to verbalize what is really going on with you and needing a break and you're little and you need a nap and all the things. So she felt very strongly about that. And sometimes parents would get really mad at her because she wouldn't do more than 5 hours for a child. And we would we would teach in this particular setting, the children all had a lunch break like you would in a preschool. And so they took breaks for sure, but she had it designed to where it was, to me, the perfect day. because anything more really than 4 hours for a child that's under 4 years old, it's just too much. And I have seen parents drop off their children for 6 hours because they've been approved for it. And for whatever reason, the BCBA okayed it. I think sometimes that's appropriate initially, but to continue on day after day, and I'm talking 5 days a week for some of these kiddos, that is too long. We become a daycare. We become the nursery, and this director that I originally worked with, she said, I have not seen therapy be more effective because a child stayed longer throughout the day. And all it did was burn out the RBTs and the child was cranky. I would 250% agree with that. And so we got to take breaks, and it made it made the difference in my day. And I missed that. So now that I've gotten my feet wet a little bit more, I'm more of an advocate for myself and taking breaks in my mental health. This is a field where mental health is an issue. And I say this because as an RBT, kind of like a mental health counselor who counsels people all day, they need to have their own therapists. It's the same in the ABA field. RBTs and BCBAs, I know BCBAs that will only work 4 days a week. I know RBTs that absolutely will take a lunch break. They just won't do it. And so they forfeit whatever money they would have made at that time for their mental health. And that is smart. I have seen RBTs be in such toxic environments or dealing with such high need situations that they've actually had to have therapy behind it for just that specific situation alone. I myself have had to do that, where I've had situations where I've worked with other people that were very dysfunctional, so to speak. And then on top of it, having a very high need client, and it can really, really get to you. And so, yes, RBTs do get therapy for themselves just to have that stable mental health. It's a real thing within our area of work. But for the most part, though, it is a rewarding job. You really do get to be sometimes that first person that hears that first word, or a goal has been accomplished and you get to tell a parent. You really do bond with your clients. And when they leave, or you have to make a switch because maybe they're switching RBTs and generalizing clients, sometimes they will move RBTs around for the sake of just everybody needs a change. And that's hard because you really do get a little place in your heart for your clients and their families. And I've worked with some wonderful families who have been just so grateful for the care that I've shown their children and the compassion, and they have felt safe walking away and leaving their child as their child's getting the assistance that they need. And they see that their child's happy. They see that they're progressing. And it's a wonderful thing when everybody works as a team together. And there's lots of days where we have some great days, but then there's those days where we're like, do-over. We do get parents that are very ungrateful and think that, there's a little bit of an entitlement attitude. And that's just not what we do. We are a service, but we cater to all kinds of families in all kinds of socio-economic groups, cultural backgrounds. I've worked with all kinds. So it's been great. I've met a lot of people and built relationships that I know that I'll keep for a lifetime. And it's been a blessing. It's been hard work. But for the most part, it's been a good hard work. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful to all the parents that have trusted me with their child, and seeing the days where you as an RBT, a registered behavior technician, do make a difference. So with that, I am going to close and thank you once again for listening in. And I just wanted to share that little tidbit about ABA. Again, that's just a little door opener to what the ABA world is like on the provider side. And for parents to remember and caregivers to remember that RBTs are parents, we're students, where some of us are husbands, some of us are wives. I have worked with many male RBTs and BCBAs. They're amazing. They're my favorite to work with because the children respond so well to them. And that's wonderful to see. And so just in keeping in mind that we are people and we're not perfect, and we're there with your child, and we are doing the best that we can. And for the most part, most of us sincerely and genuinely care about your child. We care about their dignity. We care about their progress, and we want the best for them. Thank you so much for listening in. This is Journey Unto You, and I am your host, Lorraine Brown. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
I've journeyed oh so far just to get right where you are, the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. Though this cold road which I walked taught me to run to you, and you found me 'cause I was lost, but journeyed unto you. For all my battles you have fought, your word faithful and true. When it was comfort that I sought, my peace you did renew. Most of this cold road I walked, I was carried by you. Guide our talk and hearts and thoughts as we journey unto you. Jesus Christ, I thank you for all you brought me through. Help us to lead your children to journey unto you. And help us to lead all the children to journey unto you.